The word sex trafficking was introduced to most of us in the recent decade. Today there's over 27 million slaves resulting from human and sex trafficking globally. That's more than any other time in history. However, most only associate the problem with international countries like Thailand and Eastern Europe, or even maybe our large coastal cities like Miami and San Francisco. The reality is sex trafficking and domestic prostitution is alive and thriving in the U.S. in our cities, in the Midwest, in the suburbs, and small towns, victimizing children as young as 10 and under. And what's even sadder is that there are thousands that want out and have no opportunity to escape, right here in our own backyard.
One FBI official says it's unconscionable that this is happening on American streets. Prostitution rings that have been busted in a recent 3-day span have recovered about 70 children. Nearly 900 people have been arrested.
Prostitution in America. Working girls speak.
Every day in America, tens of thousands of prostitutes are on the job. From the penthouse in New York to the truck stop near Philadelphia. From the lobby of the hotels to the bleakest end of the darkest road. Women who say they too are your daughters, your sisters, your mothers.
Stalking girls at schools and malls only to sell them for sex.
It isn't happening in another country. It's happening right here in Minnesota.
We uncover why the state is struggling to fight human trafficking.
They say the sex ring has operated for several years and stretched thousands of miles from Minneapolis to Nashville, Seattle, and Columbus, Ohio.
Predators are preying on the children in our own backyard. In the United States, the average age of entry is 13.
One of the things you need to let everybody know is the age of these girls.
The youngest girl that I interviewed who sold her virginity was 11. And she sold her virginity for $1,000. I spoke to a 13-year-old blonde girl, blonde girls make more, for $3,000.
We're talking to teenage porn stars and prostitutes. This is Victoria, and she turned to prostitution at the age of 14. 14 years old.
More and more women getting involved in prostitution over the last couple of years, and they've been younger and younger.
There are 100 to 300,000 children involved with prostitution in the USA.
Where do they prey on these kids? They find them, the runaways, bus stations, places where kids congregate, where disaffected kids can go and try to be part of a group. And these people are predators. They look for the stragglers. They look for the ones at the edge of the pack who are looking for some type of need. They need to belong. They need to fit in. And these predators find them.
Shockingly, the Midwest is a hot spot. In Minnesota, there are 20,000 homeless youth annually. That's #1 per capita. The Star and Tribune has projected this number has risen 50 to 100% since 2008. 40% of foster kids in the U.S. will be homeless within a year after they become an adult. Within 48 hours of a homeless youth hitting the streets for the first time, they will be propositioned by someone from the drug or the sex industry. 10% of teens arrested in Las Vegas for prostitution are from Minnesota. America's at-risk children and homeless youth are the most susceptible to the sex industry that has a multi-billion-dollar price tag.
Then, experts say, comes the lure of phony stability. That's why runaways are a favored target.
They're really easier to manipulate, you know, it's like, yeah, come to my house, I'll give you some food, I'll give you somewhere to stay. Next thing you know, that's not free.
Children saved in this operation are as young as 12.
Victims come from an array of social-economical backgrounds. Urban, metro, suburban, big town, small town. Americans live an average of 19 miles from daily sex trafficking. The Annex network interviewed social workers and pastors from a variety of communities, big and small, including pastors from Waterloo, Iowa, that deal with gang and prostitution issues that are an overflow from the metro areas of Minneapolis and Chicago. In 2010, the largest human trafficking bust in U.S. history produced one of 4 ringleaders that was living in Hope, North Dakota, a farming town of 370 miles northwest of Fargo. The reality is the marketplace has become global in the last 20 years, allowing industry to expand. Unfortunately, sex trafficking is part of the black market and has benefited the most from living in a global world.
I didn't know any resources. I grew up in the suburbs that, schools didn't say, oh, there's a shelter down the street or there's this you can go to.
The international sex trafficking issue has brought light to domestic prostitution. Sex trafficking is individuals that are forced against their will or deeply victimized as children, trapped in a lifestyle that gives no realistic opportunities to get out. Domestic prostitution is sex trafficking. Beyond these statistics, what may even be sadder than these realities is that the U.S. does not equate to providing opportunities to get out. They can get out if they want to, is a myth that allows us to remain apathetic. 99. In America, 99% of women want out. Less than 100. However, in our nation, there are only approximately 100 recovery beds offered. More than 80% of the U.S. cities have none. The realities of getting out are intense. Risking physical harm and even their lives, risking separation from children, and trying to overcome addictions often initiated by their oppressors.
I've seen a number of women escape prostitution, and it can be done, but it can't be done alone.
The reality is, very few resources and opportunities exist in this country. Shockingly, many of the ones that do step out and are asking for help only find discouragement. 365. They are put on waiting lists that may take up to 365 days, 1 year. They are told they must take a number. Sources work with homeless youth, teen prostitution, and transitional homes since 1995. The Annex network is a vision to provide opportunities to anyone who wants to get out. Crisis and treatment resources need to be expanded. Research and counselors testify that significant ongoing relationships with healthy role models and community are keys to lifelong change. Currently, these are virtually void for those who want out. A network of accessible resources and transitional homes is what is desperately needed for long-lasting change. The Annex Transitional Home Model incorporates professional resources with a holistic life skills program that partners with volunteer role models in sponsoring communities and congregations. Sex trafficking victims need an opportunity to make a break from the past and build a foundation for the future. Be a part of providing opportunities to those in bondage right here in the USA, in our own backyard.